Starting lineup for your Waukee Warriors. Leading off and pitching, number 3, Grant Sorensen. Batting second, the shortstop, number 2, Evan Jesus. Batting third, the third baseman, number 7, Carter Johnson. Batting fourth, the center fielder, number 22, Will Biggs. Batting fifth, the first baseman, number 15, Cale Seiler. Batting sixth, the catcher, number 8, Ryan Lingeling. Batting seventh, the right fielder, number 18, Matt Meeker. Batting eighth, the designated hitter, number 11, Kyler Hoffman. He's batting for the left fielder, number 13, Gavin Weincheck. Batting ninth, the second baseman, number 1, Braden Moore. The Waukee Warriors are coached by Sean Pinkett, Dave Middleton, Reggie Stalzer, Kay Weaver, and the head coach, Dave Dirks. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we ask that you please rise, remove your hats, and join us in honoring America with the playing of our national anthem.
Hello and welcome in to Waukee High School. John Schaefer on the broadcast as we bump up some varsity action here at Waukee High School to 5 o'clock. Original first pitch was set for 7, but due to some inclement weather moving into the area, the hope is maybe we can get started and get one wrapped up in a hurry tonight. Again, it's a crosstown rival in Waukee Northwest, arriving to the friendly confines of the Warriors. Both teams enter with 6 losses on the season. Northwest 18-6 on the year. The Warriors, meanwhile, 17-6. Will Bowen will get the start on the bump tonight for the Waukee Warriors. On the other side of things, it'll be Grant Sorensen taking the hill for the Warriors. Waukee donning, I believe, the white uniforms, purple letters across the chest, purple numbers, and then on the other side of things, it'll be the Northwest Wolves in the black jerseys, white pants, and white numbers and lids in the batter's box. Again, John Schaefer with you here on CISN, doing what we can to really get you going here with, again, a bit of a chaotic day as storms are expected to roll into central Iowa here in the next hour or two. Anticipated a 7 o'clock start time for this varsity matchup. Wouldn't likely do anyone any favors, so here we are. Toasty one, thankful for the cloud cover today. Breeze slight off the right field wall, cutting across. And leading things off for the Wolves, Andrew Eastman. Eastman starts in center. Eastman will start in center here tonight. And the first pitch in from Grant Sorensen is a ball low. Sorensen paints the corner there for his first strike of this matchup tonight. Big swing and a miss. Strike two. Sorensen now working ahead on Eastman, the leadoff batter here for the Warriors. That one flared out into right. Gonna camp out under it. Well out there is Matt Meeker, and Meeker makes the catch for out number one. That'll bring up Cam Rourke.
Second baseman, number 6, Cam Rourke.
Second baseman for this Wolves squad. This season, batting .515. Started in 10 of 15 that he's played in, as he takes strike one there. Rourke this year, 14 RBIs, 13 singles, as he'll take that ball out and away. And the 1-1 count. Big swing and a miss for strike two. Eastman delivering the 1-2 pitch on the way. That'll chase inside for a 2-2 count. Good eye by Rourke not to chase into that one. This season, Sorensen started 4 games. That'll be ball 3, and count is full. Sorensen this year, 31 innings pitched. Only giving up 25 hits. ERA of 1.77 as he'll put Cam Rourke aboard on the walk.
Now back to the Wolves, the designated hitter, number 13, Drew Fitzpatrick.
Drew Fitzpatrick hitting for Will Bowen. Lines up in the 3-hole. Fitzpatrick this season batting .378. Played in 24 games this year, 74 plate appearances, as he takes strike one there. The 0-1, grounded to second. Waukee looking to turn two, get the out at second. Throw across, not in time, and Fitzpatrick is on the fielder's choice. As Cam Rourke gets thrown out at second. The slow dribbler just did not quite get there fast enough for Carter Johnson to really get the flip going. Fitzpatrick's aboard. That'll bring up the cleanup hitter, Tanner Jackson. First baseman swings hard at that one. Gives it a good cut for strike one. Good breaking ball stuff there from Sorensen. Quick look at Jackson's stat line this year. .351 BA, 3 home runs. That's what you want out of a cleanup hitter is the power, but he's working from behind against Sorensen here. And Sorensen starting strong thus far. And here comes the 0-2. Instead, he'll just throw over, keeping Fitzpatrick honest there at first, and he'll reset. Again, cloud cover's moved in, made for a comfortable day out there. As comfortable as 90s can be, I guess. The high heat, Jackson behind it. There's the first strikeout of the night for Sorensen, and one left on base. That'll send us, we'll take a quick pause. No commercials at this time. We'll just pause momentarily as we get ready for the Waukee side of the inning.
Hi, I'm Chris from Fireplace Superstore. Outdoor furniture season is here, and we've got you covered with the best selection in Central Iowa. We're featuring Poly Furniture by Berlin Gardens. Once you've seen the fit, finish, quality, and materials of Berlin Gardens Poly Furniture, it makes everything else look like it was built in somebody's backyard. We also have Iowa's best selection of aluminum, wicker, wrought iron, cushion, and sling. Fireplace Superstore, just west of Homemakers at 109th and Douglas.
Free Godfather's Pizza begins with the download. Order through my new online ordering app and start earning free pizza and sides. It's easy. Download the Godfather's Pizza online ordering app today. Do it.
Welcome back here to Waukee. We got the advertisement system all figured out, so we'll just keep on rolling with those as the game goes on. Bit of a one-man band tonight as the wind is starting to pick up, and that's usually tied in with the front line of the storms that are impending here. Warriors now due up. Grant Sorensen going to lead things off. Steps off the bump and into the batter's box. He'll work against Will Bowen. Bowen delivers his first pitch of the night. Some heat outside for ball one. Can hear that wind picking up just a bit. See what I can do to kill that mic just a little as well for you. Bowen 1-0, fouled off to make it 1-1. That'll be sent to the median. Sorensen this season batting .426, so leave that one out of the zone. As I mentioned, .426, 68 at-bats this season, 22 RBIs, 1 home run. 2 home runs on the year. As that ball chasing out of the zone one more time. Bowen going to try and settle things down a bit. Will Bowen this year, 2-2 record as that one's lifted out into center. The light flare going to drift out there long enough to make a play on it. As Andrew Eastman kind of slipped out there on his first step, just trying to find it a little bit more. No harm done. Gavin DeJesus now, the shortstop, steps in. Just going through those pitching stats for Bowen this year. .433 ERA. Only 11 walks this season as that's lined right back up the gut by DeJesus. And we've got our first hit of the night in this one. That's a single for DeJesus on the first pitch he sees, and one aboard. That'll leave Carter Johnson with some space to work out there, see what he can do. Johnson, the senior. Batting .369. 3 home runs. Strike one there to him. The 0-1, 1 on. Checks the runner. Quick throw over there for Bowen. Johnson will reset in the box. And await pitch number 2 in the AB. Instead, no, another quick throw and almost a pick off there for Bowen. Bowen with a quick move. Right on target as well, looking sharp. And we'll get another quick pause as I'm going to go with the bug flew in the eye on that one. No worse place to be. Either dust. Again, it's gotten breezy out there a bit. In the break, our door slammed shut. Be here in the press box. So Johnson awaits the 0-1. DeJesus on first. Good secondary. Johnson leaves that up in the zone. Will Biggs on deck in the cleanup spot for the center fielder. Biggs this season, .385. Got a big bat. As we sit 2-1 now. Bowen struggling to find the zone just a bit. Just 5 balls, 2 strikes to start this one off. Runner's going to go. Throw down just a little off the mark, and DeJesus going to stretch it into another run to third. It's going to be an error on the fielder there, and was a strike in the zone, as we confer. But DeJesus picks up 2 bags on that one. And the first run threatening right now in scoring position with 1 out. 2-2 count here to Carter Johnson. Bowen delivers. Breaking ball doesn't come in for him. It's going to stay up in the zone, loaded up. So full count. Runner at third, 1 out for the Waukee Warriors. Would love to get on the board first here. Johnson swing and a miss as that catches the outside corner anyway, and that was a nice pitch by Bowen. Leaves Johnson looking back at him as the heat paints the corner and just out of Johnson's reach for out number 2. First strikeout of the day for Bowen. Now Will Biggs with a man in scoring position. Doesn't hesitate, cuts at the first one, fouled back to the pad here in the backstop. DeJesus waits at third. Bowen the 0-1. That's flared out into right, drifting, and that'll be out of play. For strike number 2, Bowen working ahead now. On a sticky afternoon here in Waukee, Iowa. Crosstown rivals, Wolves and Warriors. Bowen delivers, breaking ball, gets him to fan at it, strike 3. Back-to-back Ks, avoids the threat. As Bowen gets out of a bit of a jam, DeJesus left at third, and no runs scored there in the bottom half. We'll be right back after a quick break here on CISN.
It's hard to stop a train.
And we're back here at Waukee. We've got lightning in the vicinity, and that'll bring a pause to our game tonight. So that'll be a lightning delay. So that'll be 30 minutes, I believe, from the latest lightning strike until we start. So we'll go ahead and just take a break here on CISN. We've got a scoreless game through an inning of play between the Waukee Warriors and, of course, the Wolves, battling things out here in Waukee. We'll take a break on CISN. We'll rejoin you and give you any updates as they approach.
It's hard to stop a train.